Hatzorayim Tovim. Good afternoon. Shabbat Shalom. Where we welcome you to the teaching ministry of Harlingen Messianic Synagogue, and this is our second class for Tree of Life, and so we will continue on. We've given you these documents for those online. The pictures up there on the screen. This is what do you call it? Representation of the Tree of Life, to give us an idea, that we can formulate with, that we can work with. Actually, it would. This is an incomplete picture of the Tree of Life, because the Tree of Life is actually three-dimensional. Okay, so you have all four sides of it, and it's connected all the way around all four sides, with Tiferet in the middle as the central part. Okay, so you look at the Bina. If you look at your Tree of Life at the top left, Bina, Chokhmah, Chod, and Netzach. There would be another set of those on the right side, another set of those on the back side, and another, so it forms a square all the way around. Okay, and then you have Keter at the top, you have Malchut at the bottom, and you have Tiferet in the middle. So that's a more realistic view, and as you begin to understand what's going on here, this is the DNA chain of life. Okay, this is the DNA. So we also call this Jacob's ladder. Okay, Jacob's ladder wasn't a painting ladder. It was unless you're Jacob. Jacob's ladder. When you look at Jacob's ladder, the representations of Jacob's ladder, it actually looks like a double helix DNA chain. Okay, going around. And so that is this. Also, the DNA of life, as within your cell, as we've discussed before, within your own personal cell, every cell of your body has a nucleus, and within that nucleus is the DNA. And every cell has the same DNA, so that they can take any cell from your body and replicate you. Okay? The same is true with the Tree of Life. Within every sephirah, say sephirah, which means attribute, within every sephirah is every other sephirah, or all the rest of the sephirah are in. So in Malchut, all the rest of these are in Malchut. In Yesod, everything, including Malchut, is in Yesod. In Netzach, everything's in Netzach. So that you can take out of every single sephirah, every single cell, sphere, you can extract all of the DNA of the Tree of Life. It can all be replicated out of any one of the attributes. Okay, so we'll get into what all of this means as we go along. Maybe perhaps by the end of this class we'll start giving you all of that. But before we get there, we have to understand what the Tree of Life is. What the Tree of Life is. And so we have the law of first mention. Remember, Pardes, everyone say Pardes. Pardes means garden or orchard. Okay, Gan means garden. Pardes means orchard. Peshat, the Remez, the Drash, and the Sod, levels of understanding, of interpreting the Scripture. And so everything, even in Kabbalah, everything must go back to the Peshat level, to the original level, the original intent. So we have to go back, if we're going to discuss Tree of Life. The Torah is the Tree of Life. The scroll is the Tree of Life. We got into that in Spanish class last night. The term Etz means tree. So the Tree of Life is called Etz Chaim. Okay? So we must go back, if we're going to call this the Tree of Life, if that's the Tree of Life, if this is the Tree of Life, we have to go back to the original and understand. So let's go back and look at it. In Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 2 and verse 7. We have the story of the creation of Adam. Everyone say Adam. Adam is Hebrew for human. So when God's speaking to Adam and he calls him Adam, he says, "Hey, human, human, may I have your attention, human?" Okay, so he's calling him more by his like lion, like dog, okay, like seal, like elephant, Adam, human. Okay, so that is his form as well as his name. Ish is the literal interpretation of man. Everybody say Ish means man. Isha means woman. Okay, so Adam calls Chava Isha, which means out of Ish. Isha, out of Ish, which means that woman taken out of man. But Adam means human, and it comes from the Adom. That he is filled with blood, that he has blood within him, that he is a red-blooded human being. Okay? Also Adamah, that he is taken from the earth, that he is drawn. So all of these words are related. Adam, Adom, Adamah, that red. What race was Adam? He might have been a redhead, because that's what Adam kind of means, from Adom. Okay, Adom, you have the what's it called? Adom, Magen Adom. Instead of the red cross, they have the red shield of David, the Star of David. In Israel, they don't have the red cross, they have the red Star of David. So Magen Adom is their rescue operation. So Adom meaning red. We have Esau is called Edom. Edom, because he was fair-skinned, red-headed, and very hairy. Okay? Remember that Malach David, the king, is also, we're also told that he is of fair skin. In the book of Samuel, when he's introduced that he is of fair skin, that he has red hair, and that he is red complected. Why? Because his great-grandmother is a Moabitess. And in fact, there was quite a dispute among the Yisraelim when he was anointed king, that he could not be king because his mother, Ruth, his great-grandmother, Ruth, was Moabite. And the Moabites were not, according to Torah, Moabites were not permitted to enter into Israel at any time. If you were if you were Kanaim, or if you were of different races, different Goyim, and you wanted to convert to Judaism, then you could convert. And you would be accepted your family would be accepted as a full-blooded Jew several generations down the line. But the Moabites, Hamoadim, could never convert by Torah law. By Torah law. Because of the way that they treated Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, when they were wandering through the wilderness. And even though that they were the kin, they were the family of the Ivrim, of the Yisraelim, they refused to allow Israel to pass through. And so God said, not only will you, and then they perverted. They caused Israel to fall into sin by committing sexual perversion with their handmaidens at the bidding of Balaam. And so God said, those people will never be permitted to enter in. And so there was quite a dispute. In fact, that's why David HaMelech had to go to war with the rest of the tribes of Israel to bring them under his domination, so to speak. And then as soon as Shlomo, his son, died, then what? It breaks apart again. And you have the northern tribes and the southern tribes. Okay? So this idea of Adam, man, all of this has to do with him. What color was his hair? All of this kind of thing. What kind of race was he? Well, there is talk among the rabbis that he very well could have been redhead, fair skin, not any racial prejudice in any way. That's just what his name implies. Okay, it's kind of like what was the father of Laban, the father of Rachel, Leah and Rachel. Laban means white because he was a white man. Well, he was from southern Europe. Okay, the Arameans, northern Syria, Turkey, going up into the Caucasus, all up in that area. So he had some European DNA going on there. But anyway, so it says, Adonai Elohim formed Adam out of the dust from the ground, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, so that Adam became a living being. Then Adonai Elohim planted a garden in Eden in the east. Now, the garden is not Eden. The garden is within Eden. Eden is the area, like a country. Okay? And according to tradition, according to the sages, that Eden is actually, that the garden was actually where Jerusalem is now, in that area. In fact, the garden where the garden of Gethsemane, the garden where Yeshua is buried, that's all that area. That's Gan Eden. Okay, and in fact, it is said that Adam, that the dust from which Adam was made, was the dust from where the Temple Mount is now. It was the dust from the Temple Mount, from which Adam, the man, was created. And so he plants a garden in Eden in the east. Notice that first it says, so that man became a living being. Verse 8 says, then Adonai Elohim. Why then? Because you have actionable time reference here, saying that he creates man first, then he plants the garden. Okay? So Adam is created first, and as Adam is there, God plants a garden around him. Whew, can you imagine that? Adam is sitting there watching, and these trees are popping up. And the garden it is a garden of trees. It is a pardes. By the way, pardes is where we get the word paradise from. Paradise is pardes. So it's the garden. When we say about going to paradise, what are we talking about? What is Olam Haba? What is the world to come? It is pardes. What is pardes? It is paradise. What is paradise? It's an orchard. It's the return to the Garden of Eden. And so that's where God's going to return us to. That's our restoration, is to take us back to the beginning. Okay, so you have Aleph Tav, the entirety of, but when you get to Tav, what? It's that song that you can't stop singing. Huh? You start singing it like we were doing this morning. Huh? You start singing the song, and where does it end? You go from Aleph to Tav, and from Tav, what do? You go all the way back to Aleph again. And so you're going around in this circle. That's the DNA. That's the helix. That's the tree of life. That is the Jacob's ladder. It's constantly revolving. This is why in Judaism time is not linear. Time is cyclical. We go through cycles, but it's always going upward. Aliyah. We're making aliyah. So we're going in cycles, but always upward in our levels. Okay? So he creates the garden. It's a garden. It's an orchard of trees. And he put the man whom he had formed in that garden. Then Adonai Elohim caused to sprout from the ground every tree that was desirable to look at and good for food. Now the tree of life was in the middle of the garden, and also the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Tree of life, Etz Chaim. Say Etz Chaim. And then the tree of knowledge, Etz Da'at. If you notice up at the top in the middle, you have Da'at. Okay? Da'at. That means knowledge. Tov Dira. Tov, good, Dira. Knowledge of good and evil. Notice that that the Torah does not go into great explanation of Etz Chaim, of the tree of life. He just says that it's there. He caused to sprout from every ground, every tree that was good. The tree of life was in the middle of the garden, and also the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. From there it divided and became 4 riverheads. By the way, the Yardan, according to the sages, is one of those rivers. The name of the first is Pishon, the one that winds around the whole land of the Chavilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Bdellium and lapis lazuli stones are also there. The name of the second is Gihon. It winds around the whole land of Cush. The name, that would be the Nile. The name of the third is Tigris. It runs east of Assyria. And the 4th river is Euphrates, the Euphrates. Then Adonai Elohim took the man and gave him rest in the garden of Eden. Why? Because it's Shabbat. Okay, the next thing is Shabbat. And so, who keeps Shabbat? Who keeps Shabbat? Just for the Jews? No, the father of the entire human race kept Shabbat. That's our example. That's first mention. Gave him rest in the garden of Eden in order to cultivate and watch over it. Then Adonai Elohim commanded the man, saying, from all the trees of the garden you are most welcome to eat, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil you must not eat, for when you eat from it, you will surely die. Not the tree of life. He can eat of the tree of life. He can eat of the tree of life. Point. They never eat of the tree of life. They never do. And there's a reason why. And we'll get to that in just a moment. No, I'll go ahead and tell you. Why do they never eat of the tree of life? Go to Revelation chapter 22, and you see the purpose of the tree of life. Revelation chapter 22. Then the Malach, the angel, showed me a river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb down the middle. The river is flowing down the middle of the city street. By the way, singular, there's one street. There is one street in the city. The street leads from the gate to the throne. That's it. The street goes right down the middle, leading from the gate to the throne. And down the middle of this street is flowing the river of life, a river of living water. On either side of the river was a tree of life. Listen, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. That's going to be awesome. Huh? This month is pear month, next month is apple month, next month is orange month, next month is banana, I don't know. Mangos? Watch. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. That's the cue. That's the clue. This tree is for healing. Refuah. Healing. The reason why they had never eaten of the tree of life is they did not need to. They already had eternal life. He said, on the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. You lose that life. Then you must eat it. But then he doesn't give them a chance to. He takes it away from them. He puts the remedy for sin before them. The reason why they never used the remedy is because they didn't have to. They already had eternal life. all of those who enter into Olam Haba, into the kingdom, into the holy city, will eat of the tree for the healing that sin has done. How sin has wounded us and killed us. You eat of this tree. As you see, God said, I cannot allow them to eat of that tree in these bodies, because if I do, they'll live forever in their fallen state. And God said, you can't do that. So he took the tree out from the midst. First he put a guard, the Malachim. He put the cheruvim. He put a cheruvim from charav. Everyone say charav, which means sword. So a cheruvim, a cherub, is not this little baby, cute little fat baby that you see in HEB right now, because it's Valentine's time. These are warrior angels with their swords drawn. What does that mean, swords drawn? Ready to use. If the sword's in its sheath, what? We're cool. You pull the sword out, what? Watch out. Okay? So he protected until he removed the tree of life. By the way, how come all of that isn't there now? Well, there was this thing called a great flood. And after the great flood, there was a great worldwide earthquake. You see, even geologists tell us today that at one time, all of the land mass on the earth was one giant land mass called Pangea. And that somewhere, thousands of years ago, it all broke up. And if you look at a map of the world, you can even see where, like, South America fits into Africa, and how Europe and the United States and Canada all fit together like a big jigsaw puzzle. You see, the Atlantic Ocean did not exist. By the way, the Atlantic is called the Atlantic, the Pacific, Pacifico. Which means what? Which means what? Pacifico. Paz. Yes, because it's a calm ocean. It's a more calm ocean. You don't have the great storms like you have in the Atlantic. The Atlantic is a very stormy ocean. And see, God separated mankind. And this happened in the time of Eder, the great-grandson of Noach, that the earth split apart. This was in the time of Abraham, that the earth split apart. Okay? And so Yafet, the family of Yafet, had gone that way. The family of Ham had gone that way. And Shem and his family were still in the area. In fact, Shem, Melchizedek, the king of Jerusalem. And so God had split mankind all apart, the Tower of Babel, the distinctions of the languages then. And so God had split everything apart. He split all the humanity apart, had them speaking different languages. They all went their own way. And then, in order to make them stay their own way, he caused the great earthquake to come. And the earth divided, the Pangea, the great continent, divided into what we have today. And so that's why it does not appear to us to be what it was back then. So, the tree of life is for healing. Can I say this? Yeshua is the tree of life. He's for healing. As Rav Shaul said, that he must needs die according to the scriptures, and be buried and rise again the third day according to the scriptures. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. That Mashiach must needs die. He had to do it. Why? What is the tree of life for? The healing of the nations. If Mashiach had not died, there would be no healing of the nations. If Mashiach had not died, there would be no healing of the nation. The Etz Da'at. By the way, Etz, as I explained in the Spanish class last night, Etz is for anything of wood. It means tree, it means wood, anything of wood. So the rollers on which the scroll is Etz. That's why we call it a tree. Okay? But the ark here, the Aron, is made out of wood, so it's called Etz. Anything made out of wood is called Etz. It's made out of wood. It can be called Etz. Okay? So the Etz Da'at, the tree of knowledge. So, question. Is knowledge a bad thing? Is knowledge a bad thing?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. However, it can be.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Too much information gets people into trouble. What is this about the tree? What is this tree of knowledge of good and evil? It's good and evil. It's not just evil. It's not just bad. It doesn't mean that it's a bad tree. By the way, Chava was not honest with the serpent, with Nakash, when she said, oh, he said we couldn't even touch it. Not exactly. He said, don't eat of it. But here you see the fences because Adam probably did say, look, don't even go near that tree. We don't want any trouble. So the way you avoid trouble is you build a fence around the law. That way, to ensure you're not breaking the law, you're not even breaking the fence. If you put up a fence, right? If you tell the kids not to play on the machinery, they're going to play on the machinery, right? So like if you have an excavator or a bulldozer or whatever, and you tell the kids, don't play on the machinery. Okay, well, good. Next thing you know, what? You turn around, the kids are playing on the machinery. I know I was when I was a kid. We lived on a dirt road, and they would come and they would grade the road with a road grader, like every 3 or 4 months. The county would send out a road grader, and they would grade the road. And we were the only house there, and so in order to protect the road grader at night, they would park it in our field. They would come up and say, can we park the road grader here? And my dad would say yes. And so my parents would say, now stay away from the road grader. Yeah, right. That's a big old machine, man, made out of pure iron, steel, whatever, and it's got all these gears and whatever. Thankfully, the guy most of the time took the keys. One time he did not. I actually started it up. And my dad came out, he was not happy. So what then? All right, well, if you don't want the kids to play on the road grader, and that road grader is going to be there for a while, you put up a fence. That is the Mishnah Torah. The Mishnah Torah is the fencing to make sure you're keeping mitzvah. That make sure you're not breaking mitzvah. Okay? It is as the parent says to the child, do not put your, did you hear that Siri the other day was telling like a 7-year-old child to put a dime on the plug outlets?
Oh.
You know, that's because it's artificial intelligence, whatever. Yeah, and Siri was telling the child to put a dime on the plugs. And so the parents were looking to sue the makers of that thing. But anyway, so the parent says, don't play around the outlets. Is that sufficient? For most of us, no. What do? We put the little plastic caps in. Why? Because it's not good enough just to tell them that. So now we're going to make sure they don't. And in fact, when my kids were growing up, I had very adventurous young men, 3 of them. And the oldest one liked to get the other 2 to do things. Hey, you know what would be a good idea? Why don't you take this wire and stick it in, take this wire, why don't you take a fork and stick it in there and see what happens? so that we took the sofa and we put it in front of the outlets, and we took chairs and put them in to keep the small children away from it. We were building fences. There's nothing wrong with building fences. And so it's not the tree of knowledge of evil. It is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So what was the issue with this tree, and why did God not want them to touch it? You know what the Nakash says to Chava, the serpent says to Chava. Well, because there's stuff that you don't know, and God's keeping secrets from you. He doesn't want you to know this stuff. And so he's keeping it hidden. But if you eat of that tree, you're going to know the stuff. And then you're going to be as smart as God. What it was this according to the Chasad. Adam and Chava were in innocence. Like children, like babies. Not that they were immature. Not that they did not have ability to think. In fact, this thing that primordial man before the flood, was some caveman kind of ape kind of creature that, and dragged his wife around by her hair with a club, is foolishness. Do you realize that Adam was the most intelligent man to ever live? He was smarter than Einstein. He was created by the very hand of God in the very image of God. You think of how intelligent he was. And you think that Chava was any less intelligent? So, it's not that they were these ignorant cave dwellers. By the way, do you know that they have found computer-type devices, not like computational type devices that are very complex? You know that they have discovered batteries from the period of the flood? In Babylon, no less. In Babylon. These people, they built how, they did something we can't even figure out how to do today. They built the pyramid. We don't know how they did it, and we don't know how it's done. And how did these ignorant people that did not have the use of machines, like we say, like we do today, get these multi-ton blocks of solid rock and put them in perfect angles, in a perfect pyramidical shape, 4 triangles, and that these pyramids are an example of the constellations in the sky in exact proportion. And that within the pyramid, there are things like when Mashiach is coming, by mathematical computation. The length of this, the length of this side to that side, the length of the hallway here to the throne room here, and all of that, all within the pyramid, and it actually ends up telling the biblical story. Don't let them tell you that early man was ignorant. We're the ignorant ones. We're the ones that are actually behind the time. Can you imagine where man would be in his advancement if we had not fallen? We went backwards. Isn't it amazing that one of the laws of nuclear thermodynamics is that everything decays. Everything goes from perfection to imperfection. Everything falls apart. So the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And he says, no longer will there be any curse. All right, so let's look at the tree. So I need a pointer. So here there are 3 straight lines going up, as you can see. These are called pillars. These are the pillars. These are called the pillars of the tree of life. So we have here, this is called the pillar of justice or the pillar of judgment. This is called the pillar of mercy. And this is the central pillar. It is called Tiferet. It's called the pillar of beauty. Tiferet, this is the domain of Mashiach. Malchut, kingdom, this is the domain of the Shekhinah, the Ruach HaKodesh. They're husband and wife. We'll get into depth. This is Adam and Chava. And this is the tree of life. So you were speaking this morning, Cyril, about God judging Mitzrayim with the plagues. With which hand did he judge? With which hand did he judge? The left hand. And the left pillar is judgment. Always. This is the side of judgment. This is the side of mercy. The right hand is mercy. So when it says that he extended his right hand to you, that's the hand of mercy. If he extends his strong hand to you, that's judgment. Always. This is Elohim. This side, this is where he is called Elohim. This side is where he is called Yud-Keh Vav-Keh. This is the judgment side. This is the mercy side. Sometimes he appears to you as this. Sometimes he appears to you as this. But too much this, and you become a rebellious child. Too much this, and you become a rebellious child. What you need, the beauty of the combination of the two. So that the two, watch the two, join together and become echad. This is a tree. This is a tree. This is a tree. They are trees within trees. Not just Sefirot within Sefirot, but trees within trees. So how many trees? This is a tree. This is a tree. This is a tree. You have one tree, but how many trees? Come on. How many did I just give you? You have one tree, but this is a tree, this is a tree, and this is a tree. So how many do you have? 3. In? Oh, where have I heard that before? You will hear rabbis say, the Trinity, it's this, it's that. We've never believed in that. Whenever you hear a rabbi saying, we've never believed in that, put on the brakes. Because there's a lot of triunity in Judaism. It's everywhere. Look, right here. Look, right here. Look, right here. How many do you have? 3 in 1. 3 trees in 1. And 3 is a very special number. It is the number Gimel. Everyone say Gimel. Aleph, Bet, Gimel. Aleph, Bet, Gimel. Okay, so 3. so cool. 3. The number 1. Everybody say 1, 2, 3. So you have Aleph. We'll get into Aleph Bet classes soon enough. Aleph, Bet, Gimel. The letters are the numbers are the letters. So Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3. But Aleph and Bet equal Gimel. So now you have a 3 compounded. 3 times 3 is 9. Go back to school. 3, 9. I said 9. Here's Junior that said 6. It wasn't me. So you have 3 compounded. These are holy numbers in Judaism. 3, you know what 3 is? Stability. 3 is stability. You don't believe me? Try sitting on a stool that only has 2 legs. What is more stable? A bicycle with 3? That's not a bicycle. A tricycle with 3 wheels or a bicycle with 2? I love motorcycles. I've had several of them. Used to ride them all the time. My wife won't let me get another motorcycle. Something about the brain not being right. So I told her, look, honey, there's the spiders, right? You know what the spiders are? It's got the 2 wheels in the front. It's a reverse tricycle, the 2 wheels in the front. I told her, look, honey, I can get a spider because I won't fall off. It's got 3 wheels, not 2. You don't have to worry about me falling down. It holds itself up. She still says. 3 is stability. Aleph is the strong man, the ox. You ever heard the term, strong as an ox? That's the Aleph. The Bet is the house. Say, the strong man of the house, Aleph and Bet. You put Aleph and Bet together, Ab, Father. The strong man of the house is the father. But a strong man in a strong house is Gimel. Gimel is the rich man. A man who has a good house is wealthy, is what the psalmist says. A man with a good wife and good children is a wealthy man. This is Kabbalah. This is the way Kabbalah works. And what is the purpose? Because next to Gimel, next to the rich man, is Dalit, the poor man. And what is the poor man doing? He's holding out his hand. He's extending his hand. And Gimel is extending his hand to the point that, the Dalit is a man bent over. He's in his distress and his poverty, he's bent over. And Gimel is reaching out his hand to pick up the poor man. The reason why God makes you wealthy is so that you can help the poor. Not so you can keep your wealth for yourself. The reason why God makes you strong is so that you can help the weak. Not so you can keep your strength to yourself. This is 3. This is the number 3. God is the strong man. And he has a strong house. He's the rich man. He's there to reach down and help the poor. This is why he consistently says that we are to help the poor, the needy, the widow, the orphan. Because this is what he does, and we are to be mimicking him as our Father, being what he is. We're to be miniatures. This is what it is to be created in Etzelem Elohim, to be created in his image. Is to be like him. So you have 3 trees. Watch. Because there is no such thing as happenstance in Judaism. In fact, there's no term for it. There's no term for it. There's no term for luck. There's no term. The word mazel, we say it means good luck, mazel tov, right? We tell we say mazel tov to the bride and groom. Good luck. But actually, it's not. Masel is the mystery of the stars. Because there is no by accident. There's no such thing as accident in Judaism. There's no such thing as happenstance, that it just so happened. It just so happened I was walking down the street. No, it didn't just so happen. God ordained it. Everything is ordained by God. So watch. Let us go to Jerusalem. Let us go just outside the Temple Mount. Let us go to a place called Golgotha, the place of the skull. And let us go to that place where both the leaders of Yehudi and the Romani put our Radenu on that place of execution. How many trees were there? How many crosses were there? Come on. This will tell you. How many were there? 3. How many people were crucified? 3. How many trees? And on the one side, on the right side, and on the left side. And where's Yeshua? And Yochanan even tells us who is who. Because Yochanan is a publicist. This one says, save yourself. And while you're at it, save us too. And Yeshua turns away from him. This one says, you fool, do you not know whom you're being crucified with? And he turns to Yeshua and says, when you get into Pardes, remember that word? When you get into the garden, when you get back to the garden, remember me. And Yeshua tells him, not only will I remember you, today you will be with me in Pardes. You are going back to Gan Eden with me. Which side? The right side. The side of what? What did this thief receive? And this thief received 3 trees. There's no mistakes in Scripture. There are no mistakes in Scripture. It's not by accident. It didn't just happen this way. God knows what he's doing. God knows exactly what he's doing. Here you have the 3 becoming one. This is God. They're not all little gods. No, it's the totality of God. These are all the attributes of God. These are all the different ways that God makes himself known to you and to me. But it's all united as one complete, single God. God can take many forms. He can take any form he wants to take. And if I say that God cannot do this or will not do that, I have limited God. I have made him no longer insult. He's no longer limitless then. And that's what the rabbis do today. They did not used to do that. But they do that today. Why? Because they want to deny who is Tiferet. They want to say, no, he can't be Tiferet. Why? Because if he's Tiferet, then we have been wrong for all of these years. And we can't admit we're wrong. The first sin of Israel was idolatry. The second sin of Israel was hatred without cause. The third sin of Israel is pride. Refusal to admit a mistake. The first sin of Israel brought about the destruction of the temple of Shlomo. Idolatry. The second sin of Israel, hatred without a cause. By the way, who did they hate without a cause? Now, it's not we who say that they hated without a cause. It's the Chazal, it's the sages who say that they hated without a cause. And if you read their writings, they actually admit that Yeshua was one of them. They should not have put him to death. There was no cause to. They hated him without cause. What was the result of hatred without a cause? They tell you. The destruction by the Romans of the Second Temple. And it is this third great sin of pride and refusal to admit their error that is going to bring about the final disaster. What is the final disaster? The war of yes, of Ezekiel 38:39. In which the final Israel is brought to her knees. The anti-Mashiach is going to try to kill all Jews. Hitlerism is not done. And you see it. It's there on the horizon. You hear about it all the time. There's still this thing of the Jewish problem. So this idea of threes, and again, if you look, you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere. You see it everywhere, 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 everywhere. And remember, you're just looking at one side. This is what we call a compound unity. It is one unit, but look at everything that's involved in it. So let me give you some names. So we have the bottom and we have the top. Let's start at the top. Keter. Everyone say Keter. Means crown. So you need to put that down up on your top because that's your paper. That's how you're going to know what all of this is. That's the throne of God. And he said, I will make earth his footstool. Malchut is kingdom. That's the earth. So here you have the throne of God, Keter. Here you have Malchut, the kingdom. It is our goal. It is our goal to get from here to here. We're climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. Okay? So in order to get to the top, we must go through every one of these. It's like playing checkers. You're going to go from here to 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 here, and then you can come back down. The next one is Yesod. Yesod means foundation. So, in order, and we're going to go through each one of these, and it's going to take us weeks to, the furthest, by the way, we've ever gotten is from the talk going to Hod. We've never actually even gotten to Hod. Hang on just a second. So Yesod is foundation. So you have to have something to build on. So what does Yeshua say? You don't want a foundation of sand. You want a foundation of rock. So that's what you're going to learn here. You're going to learn in Malkut, you're going to learn about the kingdom. You're going to learn about the Ruach HaKodesh, the Shekhinah, and all that entails, all that implies to us. You're going to learn about laying a good foundation. Notice where the foundation is. Where's Yesod? At the top or at the bottom? At the bottom. Next you have Netzach. Netzach means victory. Victory. Netzach is the classroom. We call him what? Notice there's a connection there. We call him what? Ravenu. Rabbi means teacher. Netzach is the classroom. Notice where's the teacher to the classroom? Above. And to the left, saying what? What's to the left? To the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. What's to the left? What is to the left? So what is the teacher? The disciplinarian. Is Yeshua a disciplinarian? Yes. He's also kind of merciful, but he's also the judge. He's both. He's fair, but he's just. Okay? He's the teacher. Notice. Okay? So Netzach, this is the classroom. This is where you learn how to live. These are the lessons of life. And the lessons of life, what is the classroom about? To teach you what? Submission. This is going to be all about submission. And this is going to be the most difficult sefirah for you. In fact, I would advise you to pray and pray and pray and pray. Because the more you learn about Netzach, and the more you understand it, and the more you begin to apply it, the stronger the enemy is going to come against you. Because you're going to, this is warfare. This is where you really enter into the warfare. And this is why I'm going to be honest with you, this is why we have never gotten too much past here. Because as soon as we hit here and people start applying it, man, the enemy hits us hard. And we come here 3 times, 3 different classes. We've gotten to there. And the enemy just comes in like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, and he has devoured some. This is why I tell you, be careful with Kabbalah. It's not a plaything. These are the facts of life. You've lost your innocence. You've lost your innocence. Next is Hod. And Hod means splendor. And what is splendor? What is splendor? What is so splendorous about this? What is so splendorous about this? Well, believe it or not, this is what you're seeking for right now. This is where you want to be. Because this is the realm of the prophets. This is where you get your prayers answered. This is where God hears you and he answers you. You say, I want to be like Elijah. I want to be like Elisha. I want to be like Moses. I want to be like Abraham. I want to be like David. I want to get how many of you want to get your prayers answered? Would you like to get your prayers answered? I would like to heal people. I would like to say to this mountain, get up and move. By the way, that's what Moshe did. When the seas parted, he said that's what Yeshua is referring to. He said to the mountain, get up and move. And the mountain moved. He said to the sea, get up and move. And the sea moved. You know that the Chazal tell us that when they were at the foot of Har Sinai, when they were at the foot of the mountain, that the mountain actually levitated, got up, because the power of God was so strong upon it that it got up and levitated above the earth. And that's what Yeshua is referring to. You say, oh, yeah, move your mountain. You can, if you have just a little bit of faith, you can move that mountain of financial stress, that mountain of the. He's saying you can move a mountain. It's not analogy. It's saying you can do what Yeshua did. You can take the atomic level because you're in a different dimension, and you can change the microbic level. You can change the atomic level. So that you can walk on water, so that you can move mountains, so that you can turn water into wine. Yeshua said, "You have seen me do these things. Greater than these things shall you do." I grow weary of pacified faith, brought under control, tamped down. My goodness, can you imagine when those people first saw that mountain levitating in the fire and the thunder, the lightning, the sound of the shofarim? Can you imagine what it was to see that Shekinah day and night, cloud coming down, fire going up, fire coming down, cloud going up? Can you imagine what it is to watch as the waters part before you and then come crashing down behind you? To watch as the mountains level and as the valleys come up and you're walking across, the snakes are being put to death, the scorpions are being put to death, because that's what happened as the ark went before them, so that they would walk on a smooth ground. It said that when Mashiach comes, that he will come, that as he comes walking through the desert, that the grass and the flowers will sprout up at his feet. This is the realm where you get your prayers answered. But I'm going to give you a secret. You don't get your prayers answered without submission. You have to go through the classroom first. You have to go through the classroom first. This is Tiferet. This is the realm of the Mashiach. Tiferet means beauty. Beautiful one, I love. Beautiful one, I serve. Next is Chesed. Chesed is loving kindness. It's where we get the term Hasid, the Hasidic Jews. The rule of the Hasidim is called Hasidut. And it is three things: submissiveness to God, acceptance of situation with joy. Those are the three rules of Hasidut. Submit to God, accept the situation with joy. Who are the Hasidim? They're the guys that get in the van in the middle of Jerusalem and block all the traffic and put a big boombox on top of the van, and they start dancing in the streets. It's the guys with the long sidelocks. And they're crazy. They're crazy Jews. But they're always dancing and they're always singing. Next is from Chesed, from loving kindness, you go to Gevurah, that is strength. Strength to strength. From Gevurah, we go to Da'at. I already told you. Knowledge. By the way, this Sephirah is said to be empty. All the others, we will explain to you what goes in there. This one is empty. Why? That's what you put in. That's your experience. That's your understanding. Da'at. Up here is Chokmah. From knowledge to wisdom. Across from wisdom is Bina, which is understanding. How does one get to understanding? First, they must know. Second, they must be wise. And then they will understand. It's not just a matter of understanding. By the way, you start here. What personal experience? The truth is you cannot understand people without your own personal experience. If you want to be where someone else is, you experience what they're experiencing. Then you'll understand. Otherwise, and I say this kindly, keep your mouth closed. Stop the criticism. You've never been there. By the way, you learn to stop the criticism down here in the classroom of Nitzach. Notice that they are counter to each other. We're not here to criticize people. We're here to understand people. What got them there? Why are they there? What put them in that place? What put them in that position? Why is that woman walking the street the way she is? What put her there? Do you think that when she was 5 years old, she said, I wanted to be a hooker? Do you think, really, honestly, at the age of 15, that this is what she wanted to do for a living? This is how she wanted to make her money? Something happened. Not good. That put her in that position. I'm telling you. And no matter what they tell you, they really don't want to be there. Because if nothing else, there's the shame and the degradation of the situation, even in this day and age. And on top of all of that, every human being has the spark of the divine with them. You have the spark of God within you, and that spark of God is telling you, this is not right. And you cannot live at peace with yourself so long as you are trying to smash down that light. The conscience. There's no drug addict, there's no alcoholic, there's no whatever you want to say. Why is that person greedy? Why is that person selfish? Why is that person this? Why is that person that? There's a reason why they got to where they are. It is not our responsibility to criticize them. It is our responsibility, number one, to understand them, and number two, to help them out of that situation. To flip the switches of the Sefirot on in their life. That's what we're here for. That's what it means to bring them to Yeshua, to bring them to Jesus. To bring them to Torah, to bring them to the Word. We're flipping on these switches so that they will understand, so they will have a foundation in their life, so that they will understand that they will submit themselves to the will of God, so they'll get their prayers answered, so that they can see the beauty of life, so that they will learn loving kindness, so that they will be strong, so that in their experience they will be wise and they will understand somebody else, and they can lift somebody else up to the throne of God. That's what we're here for. That's what the tree of life is about. You see, this is what it means by B'Tselem Elohim. This is what it means to be made in the image of God. You see, every one of these Sefirot that is within God is within you and me and every other human being. We all have these Sefirot within us. And all of this, you see, all of this is within this Sefirah. And all of this is within this. And all of that is within that. And every single one of them has the entirety of it all within. You have all of the entirety of that within you. Somebody just needs to flip on the switches. Just like that box right back there. You want the lights on? Somebody needs to flip the switch. That's why we're here. That's what we're doing. We're flipping switches on. In fact, somebody already flipped some switches on in you. That's why you started coming. Somebody already touched you. And they flipped a switch. Your responsibility is not to criticize the poor, the needy, the downtrodden. My responsibility is not to look at that woman with an evil eye. or to cuss out the driver in front of me because he's a little slow at the light, or even give him a pita. That's not my responsibility. Because you see, the other day, I had taken my wife to the hospital. We sat in the emergency room all day long because they were trying to get her blood pressure down. And I was unnerved. I was troubled. I was worried. And I kind of, in my daze of what was going on in my life, I kind of fell asleep, at the light, and I kind of didn't move fast enough. And somebody hit the horn on me. And again, in a new way, it dawned on me. When you hit the horn at that person sitting at that light, you don't know that their life just fell apart. And there you are, just adding on to their load, making them feel worse. You don't know that they're just coming from the hospital, that they've just come from the bank and they're bankrupt, that they're unable to pay their bill, that they've just been in a family crisis and their son or their daughter has done this or done that. You don't know what is going on in that person's life, and yet, unknowing, you pita them, you hit the horn on them. You say, but that's just a simple thing. Yes, but you see, that's part of it. That's part of the problem, that we don't understand, and we just act and react without even knowing what impact we're having on people around us. This is why it's not our place to judge, and it's not our place to criticize. It's not even our place to pita. When that cashier gives you the wrong change, don't yell at her. You don't know what she's been through that day. When the wait staff is a little slow, it's okay. Where are you going? Where are you going? When that driver's driving a little slow down the road, it's okay. If you want to get there sooner, start earlier. You know there's going to be slow drivers on the road. That's your fault, not theirs. That's my fault. We're here to flip on switches so that we can be lights in the darkness. So we can show the charity. So we can show the loving kindness. So we can show the forgiveness. So that we can use wisdom with understanding, because we've been there and we know what it's like. So we ourselves cannot tell others to submit to God. But I myself, I need to submit to God. I need the foundations of life within myself before I ever point a finger at you. Before I ever point a finger at somebody else, I need to have all the sefirot within the sefirot. I need to understand all these things. I promise you this. Number one, you're going to have trouble. The devil's going to attack at every stage, every point of this. Yes. And you're going to have to pray your way through it. And work and work and work. And you're going to have to be self-conscious like you've never been before. The second thing I promise is that God will begin answering your prayers like you've never had them answered before. And the third thing I'm going to promise you, if you can make it, you're going to be the kindest, nicest person you've ever been. Unbelievably forgiving. So that even like Yeshua, even like Stephen, you can say, Father, forgive them even if they kill. You want to know how people get to that stage? This is how. You will be so kind that you will be on your knees praying for your enemies. Loving those who despise you. and being kind to those who misuse you. You're going to see amazing changes in your life. So that, Brother Sido, would you close?
Father, thank you for this wonderful teaching. Father, thank you for the tree of life. Thank you for all the wisdom, insight, power that is within it, Father. Thank you, Father, that you put in Roy's heart to teach this to us, Father God, and we pray that you would help us to have ears to hear what your Roy has to say to us, that we would apply it to our lives, and we would prepare our hearts, prepare ourselves what is to come, both the good and the bad at the same time, Father. Give us the strength to overcome any attacks of the enemy. And Father, we are grateful because on the other side there is growth and growth and growth. We love you. We praise you. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we move.
Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.